Hi, guys. How are you? So, you have listened to or read the original Three Little Pigs and the Big Bad Wolf. You have heard a fractured version of the Three Little Pigs and the Big Bad Wolf. So, now comes the fun time for you. You are going to select a fairy tale that you want to start planning to fracture on your own. In our lesson folder today, I have included for you a list of fairy tales on Get Epic that also have fractured fairy tales on Get Epic for you to use as sort of your template or your model. You're not to copy those, you're not to use those ideas, but to help get your ideas generated. Because if we were in the classroom right now, boys and girls, I would have been spending the last 2 weeks reading to you lots and lots of traditional fairy tales with a fractured one to go with it so you could start to get your own ideas generated. But unfortunately, we can't be together for me to be able to do that. So they're on Get Epic, and I have the list again in the assignment folder for today. And you can go on, and all you're going to do in the search box at the top is type in Cinderella. There'll be a traditional Cinderella, and there's some fractured ones in there. And I had some other examples in there as well. So if you're sitting there going, I don't know what I want to do, Mrs. Vitica, there's some ideas in there for you. Okay. So when we go to write our fractured fairy tale, we're going to do a plan because we know all writers start with a plan. They don't just jump in, they start with a plan. So I want to refresh your memory first of what we learned about the story mountain, about how stories progress. We don't just start at the top of a mountain with the climax and all the big events happening. We start at the bottom. And the bottom, just like if we were going to climb up a real mountain, we'd have to start at the bottom. We don't just start in the middle at the top. So at the bottom of a mountain, a story mountain, are the setting and the characters. So in the case of my fractured fairy tale today of the true story of the Three Little Pigs, our setting is still the three pigs' houses, and the characters are still the same four characters, the three little pigs and the big bad wolf. The difference is in the traditional story, it's being told by the three pigs. In my fractured fairy tale, it was told by the perspective of the big bad wolf. Then we have the problem as we're going up a mountain. If you've ever walked or ridden your bike up a very steep hill, you know that's where the problem is. You start to get tired. So in a story mountain, we have a problem. Our characters face a problem, that rising action. So in the traditional Three Little Pigs, the problem is the wolf keeps trying to get in their house to eat them, and he keeps blowing their houses down. So they have to run from the straw house to the stick house to the brick house. And then in the fractured fairy tale, the problem is because we're hearing the story from the perspective or the from the side of the wolf. The problem is he needs sugar for his dear old sweet granny's birthday. And we have the climax where big events happen. And in the traditional story, it's when the wolf goes down the chimney of in the brick house, and he gets boiled in the pot. In the fractured fairy tale, it is when he's huffing and puffing and trying to blow down the house, and the news reporters and the police show up. So the following action gets us to that resolution. We don't just go from this big event to boom, story's done, the end. That's not how good stories are written. In the traditional story, the wolf falls down, they boil him up, and they have him for dinner. And then in the fractured fairy tale, he is carted off to jail, and he is still in jail. The resolution, how the story is solved. The wolf is killed in the traditional story. In the fractured fairy tale, he is taken to jail, and he's thought of as the big bad wolf. So today, what you're going to do, friends, is you're going to start planning, just planning your fractured fairy tale. So again, in this writing assignment, there's lots of things in there for you to do. This is a, kind of an involved assignment because we're at the beginning of a big writing project. And we know in the classroom that takes a lot. We don't just jump right into that writing. We do a lot of back work and planning, and that's what we're doing today. So I've included for you a blank planning sheet that you're going to make a copy of for yourself. It's going to be a working document that you're going to keep working off of. And then a planning sheet that I've included that I've as a sample of what I've been doing. All right. Today, all you're going to do is plan the first two boxes, I believe, the characters and setting. And I believe the problem, I think I have the problem in there. I don't remember, to be perfectly honest with you. So make sure you look at my planning sheet and see which grids I have filled in. I do not want you to fill in the whole grid today. We're going to do this a little at a time because we know writers think through and plan. So the first thing you're going to have to do to make your plan is first you have to select which fairy tale you're going to fracture, and you really have to know that fairy tale well. So make sure you're going through Get Epic and choosing carefully. Then what you're going to do is you need to make sure you truly know the elements of what makes a story a fairy tale. Now, fractured fairy tales writers do not fracture and break up every piece of it. Again, I'm going back to the one I read to you, the true story of the three little pigs. They changed one thing. They told the story from the wolf's side. One. Okay. So you don't want to change building materials and settings and characters and the problem because it still has to look very much like the traditional story. So make sure that you're spending some time reading the traditional stories in Get Epic and a couple examples of some fractured fairy tales to give you some ideas. So fairy tales, though, have very specific things in mind. So first of all, they have a beginning line and an ending line usually. They typically start with once upon a time and they lived happily ever after. Fairy tales, friends, don't necessarily have all of these elements in them, but they have many of them. And my story did as well. It often has the number 3, the 3 little pigs, Goldilocks and the 3 bears. Cinderella had 3 evil people in her life. She had a evil stepmother and 2 evil stepsisters. There were 3 sisters, so Cinderella and the 2 stepsisters, that number 3. Oftentimes in a fairy tale, they get 3 wishes. My story didn't necessarily have this, but oftentimes in fairy tale, there's magic. There's always a good versus evil, a hero versus an enemy. So we have the big bad wolf versus the 3 little pigs. Oftentimes, not always, there's royalty, isn't in my story, but there's often royalty, kings and queens and princes and princes. So be thinking of those elements. What is a fairy tale? And how you're going to plan your fractured fairy tale. I hope you are super excited about this. I am. I'm super excited. This is always a fun writing project. I wish we were in the classroom doing it together because you get lots of great ideas. So look at my sample, friends. Fill in. You'll see I have my the traditional story, and then I have the my fractured story. So you'll have an idea of where I'm at in the plan. Please do not fill out the entire plan box. Only fill out the boxes that I have filled out on mine on yours. Please share that with me so that I can give you some feedback. And this will be your working document that you'll be your planning sheet. Just like in the classroom, we have our writer's notebooks and we plan. This is going to act like your writer's notebook. This is going to be your writing plan that you're going to keep coming back to over the next probably 2 weeks in planning before we really get started writing. All right. So I cannot wait to see what you come up with. This is super exciting. Wednesdays is going to be our writing days. It's going to be wonderful writing Wednesdays from here on until the end of the school year. All right. Off you go to work. See you later. Bye-bye.